This video is sponsored by Nokia.
New Nokia 7110 in your hand. It's the Navi key.
When it came to the early days of cell phones, Nokia was leaving everyone in the dust. They set the stage for what cell phones became today. Nokia is planning on doing it all again, and their latest offering is exactly how they plan to do it. So this is a Nokia 8V 5G UW, and it might be the perfect phone for creators. The big story with the new Nokia 8V 5G UW, you can say that name 5 times fast, is the 5G UW part of it. It's on Verizon's network, and the UW obviously stands for ultra wideband. And when you're connected to ultra wideband, you know it. We've done tests out sort of up in Los Angeles with Verizon's 5G network and seen things like 2,000 down. I mean, just insane speeds, and I'm here for it. So I mentioned that the new Nokia 8V 5G UW is a great phone for creators. So the camera array is obviously why. So the main shooter is 64 megapixels. You've got a 2 megapixel macro lens, a 2 megapixel depth sensor, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle, and a 24 megapixel front facing camera. And while those are nice specs and they're using Zeiss optics, they're amongst the best going, the spec sheet doesn't tell the whole story. What Nokia is doing on the software side, I think is what makes this such a compelling package for creators. So obviously the pictures that come out of it have to look good too, and the pictures look really good in almost every scenario that you throw at it. So that's mostly due to the 10-bit HDR, HEIC photos. So you wanna go in and edit them, there's like a ton of latitude you have with the editing, which is awesome. You can bring things out in the background ordinarily you can't do with phones that are shot on mobile. Portrait mode, obviously HDR, things like night mode. If you're in highlight, you're in low light, whatever you are shooting, the pictures will look good. So I did notice that sort of out of the box in auto, the contrast can be a little bit on the high side. In some people's eyes, they might like that. But because you've got that 10-bit HDR, HEIC in there, you can pull that down and tweak it to get the best sort of color saturation for your eyes, which is something I really like to have. So obviously I can talk about why it's good for creators. And there are a lot of phones out there that are good for creators. But let me show you why I think this phone, there's a spot in the creator's pocket. So obviously I can't say this is a phone that's good for creators if I don't actually show the footage and what it's capable of. So a few reasons that I think it works really well as like a B cam if I'm out traveling again and filming, or if you want to use it as an A cam to film yourself. So it's got really good cinema mode, first of all, which is awesome, but it gives you full cinema level controls of the video. So shutter speed, aperture, ISO, all that stuff you can really granularly dial in. Things that are usually reserved for, actual DSLRs or for cinema cameras. And then just to prove that we're actually using this and to show you what the video fidelity looks like, we've got 2 of them. And so I gave one to JD. I was actually filming this to show you guys kind of what the quality looks like. All right, so right now it's 2 o'clock on a really nice sunny day here in Southern California. So a bunch of different scenarios at play. So if I come over here and I want to film like this plant, it's nice, it's bright sunlight, but suddenly I pull up to the sky, obviously that is really bright. And you can see how quickly it's going to adjust. If I take 2 steps forward, I go from the brightness to now suddenly I'm in the shadows. If I come right back, you can see how quick things like the focus are. That was all shot on just auto to kind of show what the phone did on its own. You can dial things in though, ISO, shutter speed, things like that if you want to. But there's one last trick which I was really impressed with. Built into the camera app, you can actually export the footage into Rec 709, which is kind of sort of the default sort of footage for a blank color space. You don't really see that ever on a mobile phone. Maybe it's a little more nerdy than other things I talk about, but it's really cool to see it on a phone. And beyond that, the footage that it's taking is shooting all the footage in 10-bit. So instead of having like 16 million colors like you'd have on sort of older phones, you now have billions of colors that you can work with. And it's a huge amount of extra information. And it does a lot more than just like convert to Rec 709. There's LUTs in here. There's built-in effects like lens flare if you want to get your inner J.J. Abrams on. So even if you don't export using Rec 709, you take that footage, you put it into a Final Cut or Premiere Pro, you can grade that footage to look not only amazing, but also to match whatever you're using for an A-cam. So in a time when we can eventually travel again, I don't have to carry a second gear bag. I can honestly carry something like this. And the best part is, I don't think anybody would ever know that it was shot on a phone. It's been kind of fun to see the transition of phones over the years, and phone reviews used to be just like, here are the specs, and you're done. The specs are less important, and the user experience is what matters with the device. But knowing what the device has is also an important part of the buying decision. So here's at least what's inside, and I guess on the outside, of the new Nokia 8V 5G UW. So it's running Android 10, but 11 will be here very soon. And Nokia, especially recently, has a really nice track record of pushing updates quickly. The screen is really nice. It's an LCD display. It's 6.81 inches. It's running Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G, 6 gigabytes of RAM. It also will have 64 gigabytes of storage. I wish it had wireless charging, but it does have quick charging. Face unlock, which has always had a special place in my heart, is there, as is the fingerprint reader in the power button. So somebody like me, a creator who's making videos, usually when I'm out shooting, I've got a lot of gear and it becomes cumbersome to go places, and I can't sort of do some of the run and gun stuff that I like to do generally. But having phones with this amount of power, at least on the camera side, that gives me this much flexibility and latitude to take it with me, kind of makes me excited for what the future of mobile is going to be. Being able to have the ability to edit photos and use the video that comes out of a mobile is really awesome and been nice to have. And it's also part of my heart that is kind of happy to carry a Nokia phone again. It was a brand that was sort of a special spot in my heart, for the first brands that I ever reviewed on the channel. So having a phone in my pocket with that name, it means something to me.